Good afternoon and welcome to Colorful Cooking. My name's Eileen Brights, a clinical registered dietitian at Spartanburg Regional Medical Center. And
happy National Nutrition Month. My name's Cassidy Butler, and I'm also a registered dietitian at Spartanburg Medical Center. Before we get started today, I do want to ask everyone, if you have any questions as we go throughout our recipe, please drop them in the chat and we'll find a time at the end to address all of those. But before we get started, the name of our recipe today is called Walnut and Oat Egg Cups. And so we're going to go ahead and get started by making our crust first, and then we'll let that bake and we'll make our egg mixture. So the first thing we're going to add to our food processor here is about 1.5 cups of old-fashioned oats.
And we're going to process these into a flour. So don't be afraid of your food processor. It's easier than I thought when I first made this. It only takes a minute. I'm going to look and make sure all the chunks are nicely into a powder texture. Maybe just a little bit more. What do you think?
I think that's good. You want it to look kind of like a flour consistency is what we're going for. So once your oats are pretty processed there into a flour, the next thing you're going to do is add some walnuts, and we're doing about 3/4 cup of walnuts to this.
And we'll process that. It doesn't have to be a powder. You could still make it a little granular. So walnuts are going to, because they have natural fat, they're going to make a nice creaminess to the flour, to the oat flour, and bind this flour together. What do you think of that?
I think
that looks good.
So next, we're going to add some of our wet ingredients to our crust. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add this olive oil here. So we went ahead and measured out about 1/4 cup. And so we'll go ahead and pour that in. And then we have 2 tablespoons of water that we'll add. And then our last ingredient that we're going to add to our crust mixture is just a little bit of salt.
Okay. We'll process this into a nice dough. And the salt in combination with the flour mixture and walnut mixture adds a nice salty, savory flavor. You'll be able to taste it a little bit with the egg mixture. Sometimes you may have to add a little bit more water if you feel that your mix is not quite moist enough. We're going to test it out here. We're going to take a spoon and really just press into it to see how moist, and if it's going to nicely press into the side of the food processor, because we're going to line the egg cups at the bottom and up to the side a little bit. So we want to make sure it's sticky enough.
I think that looks pretty good.
Not too crumbly. Okay, hopefully everybody could see inside the bowl. Okay, all right. I'll place this over here. So next in our process, we're going to take a tablespoon. The recipe calls for 1 1/4 tablespoons of the mixture. You may want to play with this.
It depends on how much crust you like. If you like a good bit of crust, you can do a little bit more, but if you want to go thinner on the crust and have more eggs, then you can definitely do less of this mixture. But the idea is just at least to coat the bottom there. If you want to take it up to the sides, then that's good
Oh,
too.
you know what? First, we forgot. We need to spray the pan. Don't forget to spray the pan. Okay. Yeah, we felt when testing the recipe that it maybe was just a little bit too much heavy crust. I wanted to taste a lot more egg and vegetable, but that's something that you can trial at home. And we've got a nice avocado oil that doesn't leave a scorched or burnt taste when you're baking. So we can, now this recipe is supposed to make 12 egg cups. Again, you can play with this at home. I wanted, more fluffy egg than crust. So I went ahead and made 16 out of this recipe. So you might, again, just want to play with it. And you pat the dough down at the bottom of the cupcake tin and then up the side a bit. That way the egg won't stick when it's baking.
And we're just kind of putting a little scoop in there and then taking our spoon and kind of forming it to the sides. If, your hands are clean and you want to use your fingers to kind of pat it down in there, that's fine too.
So I was surprised with this crust how tasty and easy it is to make and how healthy, because I'm always feeling a little bit guilty on eating pie crust. But so every bite of this recipe is going to be nutrient dense.
And if you don't want to make it into muffins, I know we're making these egg cups here, but you can always get like a casserole dish, and then you would just take this mixture and just kind of line the bottom of a casserole dish or a pie dish or whatever pans you have at home.
This this olive oil or the avocado oil spray comes out pretty like more than just a mist, so just be cautious because that can have an effect on how kind of greasy your egg cup can be. I guess you can always take a paper towel and put a little olive oil or avocado oil on a paper towel and wipe the egg cups on the inside. And really that goes for a lot of cooking pans. You can always use a paper towel to wipe it. That way you won't get excess oil if you don't want to.
And this crust, because it's kind of more of a flour, it's not as flaky as a lot of other pie crust are either, so it goes in there really nicely. So once you've filled your crust into your muffin tin or your casserole dish, the next thing you want to do is go ahead and throw it in the oven. So we preheated our oven back here to 350, and then we're going to let it bake in our oven for about 25 minutes.
So I did bring an extra. As you'll see, we do have extra. We didn't want to overfill our muffin cups. So we do have a bit extra to make a few more. And because we don't like to waste a thing, dietitians put everything to use. I'll probably go ahead and put these in my extra muffin platter, and I'll make a few extra. This one is larger muffins, but we can go ahead and just fill it up and make a few more.
Gotta spray the pan.
Give a little spray. 1, 2.
I can make 2 more.
Maybe that'll be 2. So 12, 13, 14.
And these are a little bit bigger, so they might need more than a tablespoon. Line the bottom there.
I guess this dough would be fine too to store in the refrigerator if you had some left over. You can certainly use it. Just put it in a nice sealed container, and you know, since there is fat in the walnuts and oil, you can probably keep it up through about a week and use it again for something else. I've already been thinking about so many other recipes that this crust would be good with.
Okay.
Okay.
Stick
So we'll
these
go
in there
ahead
too.
and bake that. I'm going to move our food processor because we're going to show you in the meantime how to cut up the vegetables. Today we only have red bell pepper and spinach, okay, for our vegetables today, but you can certainly add whatever kind of vegetables you like, okay? Personally, I added onions and squash just because I had them in my fridge, and everything turned out great. So now we
can go ahead and
go
start
ahead
by cutting up our vegetables. So we have just a handful of spinach here. The goal is once you go ahead and chop it up to try to get about a cup, but if you like more spinach, go ahead and throw as much of it as you want in there. When spinach cooks down, it cooks down to be really small, so you can never have enough. I know it looks like a lot in our bowl right here, but once we chop it up and put it in our egg cups and it cooks down, it'll definitely shrink up there. And then we have a red bell pepper here. You can choose any kind of pepper that you like, but today we've got red, so we'll go ahead and start with this one. All of our produce has already been washed, but if you're cooking at home, go ahead and make sure that you clean all of your produce and then go ahead and get a knife. It's really important to make sure anytime you're cutting anything, whether it's fruits, vegetables, any kind of meats, you want to make sure that you're being really safe with your knife. So some knife skills that we can talk about when you're holding your knife. There's a few different ways you can do it. One is you can kind of take your fingers and your first finger and your thumb and pinch where the top of the blade is, not by the blade, or you can go ahead and hold it back here if you feel more comfortable. I have found that when I use my 2 fingers and kind of pinch up here a little bit, I do get a little bit more control over the knife, but it's just whatever you're the most safe with and comfortable with at home. And then always making sure your other hand that's holding your produce is we like to use a technique kind of called a claw. And so you kind of want to bend your fingers at your knuckles there. When you have your fingers straightened out like this, that leaves your hand open for you to kind of cut your fingers a little bit when you're using your knife. So make sure that you tuck those fingertips under and use your claw technique. So we'll go ahead and start cutting our pepper here. So I always kind of cut the top off. You can do, however you want. Some people like to go ahead and then scoop out the seeds here. I just go ahead and cut it, and then I'll take out my seeds at the end.
here we could just.
And if you have a spoon, sometimes it's easy just to go ahead and take the seeds here, and you can scoop it out with a spoon. So we'll do that. And
easy.
We'll toss it in the trash down there. If you have a compost bin at home, you can definitely compost that. Get all the seeds out of there. And then we'll do that with this other side. I feel like when I use a spoon to kind of scoop out the seeds, I'm able to get them, pretty much in one scoop instead of having to kind of go through and pick the seeds out.
You
but
scrape them.
You do have to kind of scrape them a little bit if you're missing that first scoop, or if you like the seeds and they don't bother you, that's fine too. They won't hurt you.
You could always rinse it off in the sink as well.
And then I'm just going to go ahead and kind of dice these up. Because we are making egg cups and our muffin tins are pretty small, I'm just going to dice them up for this recipe, but I'll start by making some strips here.
Did we
And
put
then
the timer on?
I did. And you can, cut it like this if you want. But another way to make our pepper a little bit more sturdy is if we turn it over to where that part is down. So we can go ahead and cut our strips here.
While Cassidy is chopping vegetables, I'm going to go ahead and get my 9 eggs cracked and put them in the mixing bowl.
So this recipe calls for 1 pepper and then 9 eggs. But if you're going to make more egg muffins other than the 12, you can always add a few more eggs in there. I know we're doing 14, but if you were to kind of jump it up there to 16, you might want to add another egg or 2. And again, the size of these red peppers really just depends on what you like. I like to go ahead and cut mine into strips, and then I'll dice them up here. And you can do one at a time. I kind of group them together and then just kind of roll my knife like that, just dicing them up in little chunks. And then some other things that we'll be adding to our egg cups, once you kind of start scrambling those up, we've got some cheese we'll add in there as well. We've got some different kind of spices. And the one thing that I like about this recipe is you can add just about any kind of spices that you want in there, or any kind of herbs. So feel free to look in your pantry and see what all you have.
And if you have pasteurized liquid egg, that's fine to use. If you like egg whites, you can use egg whites. If you don't like eggs, you can sample and try some tofu. So lots of alternatives. I'm going to wash my hands a little bit. Okay.
Got a few little.
I'm going to whisk up the eggs.
Here.
Get the eggs nice and fluffy. Some people like to add milk to their eggs for a creamier texture, and that's fine. This recipe did not call for that.
And some of these pieces ended up a little bigger than I'd like, so I'm just going back through, cutting these up a little bit smaller.
Was that a whole pepper?
It was the whole pepper.
So we're using the whole pepper.
Yes. And so we can go ahead and add some of our spices into our egg mixture, and then we can cut up that spinach. So we do have some garlic powder over here we'll add. And then dried oregano. And then our other ingredient just depends on if you like it or not, but we do have a little bit of mustard here.
We can use that little spoon.
Yeah. And with this Dijon mustard, it just depends on what kind of flavor you like. So I think for this recipe, we're doing about 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. But if you like more than that, go ahead and feel free to add as much of that in there as you want. If you don't like mustard at all, you can leave it out, but it does give it a nice flavor.
It did give it a good flavor.
And so you can go ahead and whisk that up at home.
Smells good already.
And then to our egg mixture, we can go ahead and kind of, you don't want to whisk in your vegetables and your cheese, but you can kind of just use a spoon or a spatula to fold it in there. So we'll go ahead and add these peppers. And then we'll start with our spinach. So with the spinach, I'll go ahead and just dump it out onto my cutting board here and chop it up. Another thing that you can do is just tear it. If you don't want to chop it up, that works great too. Again, it looks like a lot of spinach. Our goal is about a cup once it's finely chopped. So I just like to take my knife for this and just kind of go through chopping it up. And you'll go back and forth a few times. But again, at home, if you like just tearing it up, or if you have some little kiddos at home who might need a job or something, that's something they could do to help you prepare dinner. They could cut up this or tear up the spinach for you and put it in a little bowl.
We bought the pre-washed spinach, which is always easier, but we did wash it again. We gave it a nice rinse and a pat dry. So if you do that, if you're rinsing it, make sure to pat it dry so that it doesn't cause extra water in the ingredients, because we don't want the crust to be too soggy.
And again, you just kind of pile it up and keep chopping it up until you get it to the good consistency that you want.
Since the muffins are small, it's probably better to cut your vegetables into bite-sized pieces so they all fit nicely in that egg cup. But if you're making it into a casserole, you have a little bit more leeway in cutting your vegetables longer.
That's pretty good. We'll go ahead and add this to our mixture.
That's about a cup, right?
Is it about a cup? We can measure it.
Now, I did put this much in when I tested the recipe. I added a ton of vegetables. But to each his own. It kind of did take away from the egg mixture if you use too much vegetable. Yeah.
We eyed that pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'll go ahead and dump that in there.
Now I'll just stir it up. It's beautiful and colorful.
Kind of made a mess here. Just set all these little scraps to the side, and if you have a composter, you can do that. Check on our cups.
So next, while we're waiting for our crust to get finished baking, we can add the cheese.
So this is about a cup and a cup or a half of a cup of cheese here. So we're using shredded white cheddar, but you can use any kind of cheese that you like. If you like the mozzarella, or if you like Parmesan. So we'll go ahead and add that in there.
Okay, we'll give it a stir.
And with the cheese, we're going to go ahead and mix it in our mixture here. But if you want to save it and add it on top, and then stick it back in the oven for a minute or two, just to kind of let it turn golden brown on the top, that's one way you could do it. But we'll go ahead and just incorporate it throughout.
Yeah, I think for when I tried the recipe, I went ahead and just sprinkled the cheese on top. But I think I would have preferred mixing most of it in the mix to add a little creaminess to the mixture, and then top it off with a little bit of extra cheese. Okay, so that's beautiful. It looks so good.
And our crust has about 10 more minutes left, so we can go ahead and take any questions if anybody has anything in the chat. Maybe if you had any questions about the crust or our egg mixture.
Okay.
Great question. So the question was, can you tell us some of the benefits of having the oat flour and the walnuts and the crust? So some of those health benefits.
Okay. So oats are very nutrient dense, okay, as opposed to just regular white flour, which most crusts have. So we are getting a lot of fiber in just the oats. They're very cardioprotective. They have a lot of good soluble fiber. As well, walnuts are very cardioprotective and they have ALA, which is an omega-3 fatty acid. So both of those two together, you've got double fiber, you've got a variety of other nutrients, vitamins, and minerals in that crust. So it's a great benefit. That crust also, when you taste it, it's very hearty. And I felt for this recipe with the egg mixture that it would be, some people like having sausage with their eggs. And I felt that the flavor and the heartiness of the walnuts and oats could be a good substitute instead of pork sausage. So you're not getting saturated fats and preservatives. You're getting something totally healthy and hearty. So that was a great benefit. And I was surprised how easy it was to make that dough.
How much oregano and garlic powder did we add? Great question. We did about a half a teaspoon of the garlic powder and then 1 teaspoon of the dried oregano. Again, with these, just depends on how much you like. I think that's a pretty good amount, but if you wanted to add a little bit more, you could, or if you wanted to experiment with some other dried herbs or even fresh herbs, you could definitely have done that. And, instead of oregano, I know a lot of people like parsley you could have added into this recipe, or
Fresh basil.
basil. Yeah, I know a lot of times eggs and basil go well together, and maybe if you would have thrown some tomatoes
Fresh tomato.
into this recipe too, that could have been a good pairing. I don't think so, because a lot of times tomatoes are added into quiche. I don't think it would make the recipe too wet, but I would probably, wash them and then let them dry really well. And it depends on how almost to expiring they are. So if they're a little bit more, squishy, then that'll probably add some extra water in there.
If you do a casserole, it's nice you could take the Roma tomatoes, which are not super watery, and just slice those Roma tomatoes and lay them across the top and roast it that way. And you could even do that on top of the muffin cups, but sliced Roma tomatoes with some chopped basil, or just garnish fresh basil leaves on top of that would be really good.
And another one of my favorite things is sun-dried tomatoes. So you could always do
That's
something like that. Then you wouldn't have to worry about that added water. That's the one fun thing about cooking, is all the experimenting that you could do.
And then the cheese can be feta cheese instead, and it can be a more Mediterranean style breakfast, or not even breakfast. This could be brunch, lunch, whenever.
Yeah, and that's another good thing about the different ways that you can make it. We're trying to make egg cups, and so, you could have this as breakfast if you have a family with a bunch of kids. Everybody can kind of grab one and go, or you could make it in like a pie dish and almost make it kind of more like a quiche that you could just kind of cut up and serve. So a lot of different ways you could serve this.
And I did want to mention for those of you who are gluten-free or who have celiacs or like to avoid gluten for one reason or another. So if you make sure that you're getting gluten-free oats like Bob's Red Mill, you can use those, and this would be a gluten-free crust. And so this crust can be used for different desserts as well. I've been thinking of really good ideas. So once you taste it, you'll have a lot of ideas how you can, and it's so easy to make, and you could just whip it up just like that and have a great crust for almost anything. You know, apple, what do you call it? Like an apple
Apple
dessert,
tart.
apple
Or
tart or apple, the baked with the oats on top, or peach, apple
cobbler.
cobbler, apple cobbler, peach cobbler. Perfect. So this can go on the bottom, and then you could put some extra oats on top. So again, it's very multi-dimensional.
And some other ways that you could add other things is we really like to look at what's seasonal. So I know right now kale is still seasonal. So instead of the spinach, you could have added kale to it. I know coming up in the summertime, that's when the tomatoes start becoming seasonal if you want to do that. I know some people will even use shredded carrots, and you can add some of those in there. You could use a variety of different peppers. If you like a pepper with a little bit of spice to it, you can add something like that to change it up, or even add some red pepper flakes in there to give it a little bit of spice if that's something that you like.
Right.
I think even over the kind of summer, starting to get into the fall, that's when you start getting your squash and zucchini, and all that could go in here really nicely. So there's plenty of ways definitely to switch it up and to get plenty of color in your eggs when you're trying to make a dish like this.
Right. And it's just easy for the week. It didn't take me but a half hour to go ahead and fix these the other night, and they're gone already in our house.
I think we have 2 more questions.
Like grab and go. You can omit anything you want. You can omit the cheese. Or you can add a non, a vegetarian cheese, like shredded almond cheese. So if you're lactose intolerant, shredded almond cheese is good, or even Parmesan, which is supposed to be lower in lactose and well tolerated by people that have a hard time digesting lactose. So by all means, you don't have to add cheese.
I think the egg in and of itself is going to kind of hold the mixture together. So, the cheese definitely adds to that as kind of one of the key components of it, and also to taste. But because you have the eggs, it's definitely going to be able to hold all of your vegetables in there. So it's not necessary to have the cheese. It just gives it a little bit more flavor. What do you think about nutritional yeast?
I love nutritional yeast. So go ahead and use that. I don't know, probably at least a tablespoon, or no, at least a teaspoon in here for this size, at least a teaspoon. You may even want a little bit more. I like the flavor of it, and I like that idea. So you're making it extra healthy. That was a great idea. I think I'm going to use it.
Let's see. 2 more minutes. Okay, for any suggestions on making this entirely whole food plant-based?
Oh, so instead of the eggs, you can try tofu.
Yeah.
You can
like a tofu scramble.
Put tofu in the food processor and whip it till it's creamy and try it that way. I think that it would hold together pretty good.
I would definitely use like the extra firm tofu and make sure that you really get all the moisture out of it. So I know there's a lot of different tricks to do that, but just kind of putting it between some paper towels and really pressing it down, or leaving it like that for 30 minutes to an hour even, can help really draw that moisture out.
You may need to add some more different seasonings, maybe a little bit more salt, and go heavier on the seasonings, since tofu is supposed to absorb all of the flavor of what you're cooking it with. So you might need to go high on the seasonings,
or add some more mustard in there, or some more fresh herbs or something like that. And again, in place of the cheese, you could do a plant-based cheese, or you could leave it out altogether. But I think the tofu would be a really good idea.
Completely whole food, plant-based. Yes.
And if you wanted to just use egg whites too, if you're kind of trying to cut out that cholesterol and that egg yolk, you could definitely do that as well. I think it'll still hold its shape pretty well with just the egg whites.
Our crusts are ready. So hopefully they turned out really good in this oven. I wonder, do we have what we can do?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, we can put, what we'll end up doing is maybe put those right here. Oh, this is fine. So we could do like, oh, they look good. They did rise up a little bit.
Yeah, they did. That's pretty nice.
And they smell so good. They smell like cookies, actually.
And we're going to leave the oven on because we're going to bake this egg mixture again at 350. So we'll go ahead and leave that on and turn our timer off.
Okay.
So we can keep these over here.
Whew. All right. So maybe in the interest of time, we can get, well, I wonder if we can even use this. You can use, measuring cups are so good to use for scoops when you're baking, and when, here in this instance, we have some kind of potentially messy egg mixture. So these are great to scoop your ingredient up. I'm going to start with 1 scoop per egg cup, and we're just going to see how much.
And everything should be pretty well incorporated in here, but definitely try to make sure you get plenty of egg compared to the vegetables in there. And you want to make sure you get both your spinach and your peppers in there.
And again, if you feel like you're not getting enough egg mixture, you can go ahead and add another egg, whip it, and then add it to your cups.
So it should just go, nicely right on top of these. Another thing that you could do is if you want to save time, you could go ahead and make your crust ahead of time and just kind of set it out to cool. So you could even make it the night before. And then all you have to do the next morning is throw in this egg mixture and bake it for another 20 minutes. And that's one way just to kind of go ahead and meal prep a little bit ahead of time. You could always go ahead and pre-cut your veggies to help you save a little bit of time. I know if you're trying to do this in the morning, that usually tends to be when we're pretty short on time. But you can make them the night before and just reheat them, or just, make the crust the night before. And then if you want them fresh out of the oven, you can add this mixture in pretty quickly. So you don't have to wait the whole 25 minutes for your crust to cook and then worry about letting it cool and everything before you add this egg mixture on top.
The oregano smells so good. Wow, doesn't it? It smells like a cookie. And this is a good bit of peppers. I think this is going to give it a good sweet flavor. Sweet and savory.
That is the one good thing about red peppers compared to other peppers, is they usually are pretty sweet. I think we might have a little bit of extra.
Good. Well, I'm going to fill.
I've got 2
of the bigger cups here, and I will just load them up. Does it look like we're good with like enough egg yolk?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, wow, that looks
smaller one to the oven.
I'll do just a little bit. We're not going to waste a thing. Let me just put a little bit of, just a little bit here. And it's not going to rise that much because of all the veggies in here. Again, if you wanted extra cheese on the top, you can do it before you put it in the oven or wait halfway. However you want to do it.
Thank you. Grab this other one.
Those are so pretty. All right, very yummy. So while we're waiting, so that'll take about 20 minutes to finish off in the oven. We'll clean up a little bit. We did want to talk a little bit more about the heart health benefits of all the ingredients. So oats, why oats? Okay. They're very heart healthy. They lower cholesterol. Okay. They contain B vitamins, especially thiamine, which helps to turn food into energy and helps to keep the nervous system healthy. Um, it contains manganese, which is needed for a healthy immune system and blood clotting. Each cup of oats contains 4 grams of fiber, and this fiber is called beta glucan. Okay, it helps you feel full longer, and it helps as you eat it and digest it. It helps to digest and absorb the other nutrients in your GI system. It contains phytonutrients that have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. So that's oats. Okay, walnuts. Okay, many health benefits. Walnuts are a tree nut, rich in ALA, which is alpha linoleic acid. This is a vegetarian source of omega-3s. Okay. It can help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease and reduce all-cause mortality. Okay. And this is when you're eating a generally healthy diet and you add these items to your diet. So in place of other unhealthy foods. They contain 4 grams of protein in about 1 ounce or 12 to 14 halves. They contain magnesium. They have fiber. And if you substitute those in place of other meats, maybe a 4-ounce piece of steak or other meat, maybe use 2 ounces of walnuts. Over time, this has been shown to provide more cardioprotective and heart healthy benefit. So if you can incorporate some walnuts in your diet or substitute them, that would be a really healthy start. Omega-3 fatty acids are critical for neuropsychological functioning. One study showed beneficial results of consuming walnuts, linking them with outcomes such as improved ADHD symptoms, intelligence, and sustained attention. Other recent research suggests that walnuts may improve the gut microbiota, which has an effect on cardiovascular risk. So this is a very nutrient-dense recipe, and every ingredient has a very heart-healthy benefit.
So our other 2 ingredients that we had for our color, we had our spinach. And spinach is a great source of iron and also a lot of your good vitamins like your vitamin A, your vitamin C, your vitamin E, your vitamin K. It also has a good source of calcium. So if you're someone who doesn't like much dairy or milk or yogurt or cheese or anything like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're getting plenty of other sources of calcium. So this is definitely a good source of that calcium. It is interesting to note that calcium and iron are pretty more readily absorbed when you cook them. So it's a good thing that we're going ahead and cooking the spinach, but also that vitamin C kind of can get broken down when you're cooking it. So it's definitely important to eat plenty of both cooked and raw vegetables just to make sure you're getting the most nutrients out of these as you can. Another interesting fact about spinach is it's at its highest nutrient content once it's like first freshly picked. So if you get your spinach and you're not planning on using it right away, go ahead and freeze it. That way it kind of stores at its highest nutrient content before it kind of starts to lose some of those nutrients. Our other piece of color to our recipe was our pepper. And red peppers are again full of that vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, the folic acid. And red peppers are your sweetest of the peppers, so it is gonna give our egg cups here a nice sweet taste. And it also is interesting that our red peppers actually have the highest nutrient content of all of the other peppers because they're actually grown on the vine the longest. So you go ahead and pick your green and your yellow peppers and your orange peppers a little bit sooner than you do your red, so they get to grow a little bit longer, filling them with more of those good nutrients there. But again, any kind of pepper is good for this recipe. So if you wanted to add more color to it, you could do red, green, and yellow peppers. I would definitely do less than an entire pepper if you're going to do one of each, and you can kind of just kind of mix and match there. The other thing that we had was our egg in our recipe, and so eggs are a great source of protein. Your protein actually comes mainly from your yolk. So if you're going to do egg whites, it might not have as much protein, but it'll definitely still have some. Eggs are a complete protein, and what that means is it has all of your essential amino acids. So it is considered a complete protein there. And eggs, I know there's a lot of controversy about the cholesterol. Are eggs good for me? Aren't they bad for me? But just one or two eggs isn't gonna really be too much, and it's not really going to raise your cholesterol all that much. If you were eating a whole bunch of eggs, that would definitely be a different story. But for just a general healthy, average person, having an egg or so a day really isn't going to do too much to your cholesterol there. But definitely, if you do have high cholesterol, I would check with your physicians or dietitians before you start incorporating a whole bunch of eggs into your diet or making any changes there. Another thing I wanted to point out about our recipe is that when you kind of look at the My Plate guidelines, it really is almost a perfect meal. It's got, your vegetables that you need. It's got your whole grains, which is your fiber. It's got, your walnuts, which have protein in it, and your eggs, which are a good protein. Your oats are a little bit of that starchy carb, and it's even got some cheese in there for dairy. And if you serve it with a little side of fruit, then you got your fruits in there as well. But it definitely has plenty of your color for your vitamins and minerals. It's got your fiber, it's got your protein, and it's got calcium from both that cheese and your spinach there. So it really is a great well-balanced meal.
Jam-packed into a little muffin.
Yeah, just
for those of you that don't like big meals. So it's grab and go. Or we were thinking of a really good fruit salad. You do a fruit salad, or you can, let's say you're having company and you wanted to serve that as muffins or casseroles. It'd be great to have a really nice fruit salad, or even a mixed lettuce salad, maybe with some fresh berries on top with a vinaigrette dressing. That would be nice. Similar to, like a quiche, a vegetable quiche, except it's going to be a very healthy crust. So that might be a good serving alternative.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah. The question was, can you talk about getting those seasonal produce, the fruits and vegetables from your local farmer's market or a produce stand?
Oh, and so farmers market's going to be, I guess, full swing in May. I know here in Spartanburg. So
I
for
know
those
we
of
have
you
a
that live in
few.
Spartanburg, we should be having farmers market up and running soon. And then again, they may just get whatever is in season. And if you need to go to the store for something else, you can. You can even if you need to dip into some frozen vegetables, that's fine. Just make sure that when you've defrosted them, that you maybe set them out on a paper towel to absorb, or let some of the water come out of the vegetables before you put in. You don't want a soggy vegetable muffin. But you can use some frozen vegetables. You can use some frozen spinach if you go ahead and thaw it. Frozen spinach is easy. let it sit out in the refrigerator overnight, and then put it in a colander, let it defrost, and let all the water drain out, and then pat it down really good with paper towel. And so you can use frozen spinach. It's really cost effective too. So.
And if you're local to Spartanburg, I know a few things that we have is our farmers market that usually is on Saturdays, but then we also have a food share box. So if you live anywhere in Spartanburg or near kind of by the hospital over there, you can always sign up to get those food share boxes. And what that is it's a box of just locally sourced produce that a lot of our farmers put together, and it changes from week to week based on what they have, based on what's seasonal, and it usually is a good amount of food.
It lasts a couple weeks.
It does, and if we can find, maybe we can put the details of that in the chat, or we can send them out to you guys who are local, but just kind of see what they have in your area. I know there's a lot of just produce stands just around that you can go check out too, other than just farmers markets or that food share. I know, again, by the hospital, there's one called
Baloo's Hobo Holler over on East Main, past Walmart in Spartanburg. They usually have whatever fresh produce they can have. They have a little farm, so I found good produce there. A lot of apple season, and then up in Gaffney, there's fresh produce at Strawberry Hill. Landrum, yeah, and that's fun. That's a fun day. So almost every town's got a farmer's market.
And I found it is more cost effective to kind of go to these farmers markets or get the food share boxes as opposed to trying to find, some good things in the grocery store as well. I know those prices have gone up, and
yeah, I think
the produce stands and stuff tend to be relatively
a lot cheaper. And I know that the food share box was something like $20 for a big box, which is a huge deal. And
they also take SNAP benefits.
And I forgot how much. Was it $5 SNAP?
I think they take your SNAP and then maybe you have to pay $5.
Okay.
I think is what it is.
But
we'll make sure we get all the details in the chat or out to you in an email about that. See how much time we have left. Only a few more minutes.
Oh yeah. Can we ask if anyone's cooking at home with us? Does anyone have the recipe and is cooking at home, or is planning on making this recipe tomorrow? Okay.
Oh, good. Okay.
So y'all will have an extra recipe too, using chickpea flour for the same type of recipe. And so the chickpea would be a good source of fiber. There's your vegetarian protein and fiber. So that's a great recipe as well. We are seeing a lot of pastas made from legumes like chickpea, black bean, and so that's another alternative just to add another dimension of health and fiber and nutrients to in place of your regular old starch without nutrients. So that would be a good one to try as well. So I know our dietitian friends are excited to getting some breakfast tomorrow from us. We're gonna go ahead and put the egg cups. We're gonna chill them, and everybody's gonna get to try some breakfast. And I will say, when I was trying the recipe, I didn't want to dirty my muffin tin, and I wanted to make it easy for my kids to pick up the muffin and grab and go. So I did bake them in cupcake muffin paper, and it kind of stuck a little bit to the paper. So I would recommend just spraying a little bit of oil or wiping the inside of the muffin cup with oil and not using paper for this recipe. Just a thought.
Yes, the recipe that we have, it'll be sent out to you guys along with the recording when we get the recording. So just be patient with us on that. And if you, you have any questions once you get it, just let us know. But it'll be coming out shortly along with the recording. So we'll be excited to share that with you guys, and you guys can make it at home. Or, another good thing is just making it your own. That's one of the great things about cooking. You don't have to follow our recipe to a T. You kind of saw a general overview about what we do, but some things that I would add that might be different than this recipe is, some mushrooms in there or some onion, or kind of change up some of your color with the kale, or adding in other colored peppers or some shredded carrots. But that's the one great thing about cooking is you can kind of modify this based on what you like and what your family will eat. Maybe your family won't eat spinach, but they'll eat something else. So just trying to get as much color on their plate as possible is what we're looking for, and just a variety there. So it can be, whatever your favorite vegetables are. It doesn't necessarily have to be what we use today.
Right. I mean, variety. The more variety of fruits and vegetables that you have throughout the week is supposed to be the most beneficial anyway. So if you keep a lot of veggies and fruits in your fridge, go ahead and have prep day, or chop them up, cut them up, keep them in Tupperwares, or I use a salad spinner, which is not just for salad, because I go ahead and wash and cut up all my veggies, put it in the salad spinner, spin it around, and then they'll stay fresh for the whole week. So lettuce, I'll throw broccoli in there. So you can have veggies ready to go for whatever recipe you want. So, and the more variety that you get, the more beneficial it is for your health.
And March is National Nutrition Month, which is really exciting. And I know the theme for this year is going beyond the table. So it kind of is talking about some different things that we could do. And I know we already touched on them with, shopping locally, getting your produce locally, going to farmers markets and food shares and, produce stands. How can we kind of, make our food, but also, be environmentally conscious as well? I know composting is something you can do. You can have your own compost bin or use a compost service. Just trying not to have too much food waste there. So really using as much of the produce as possible. I know if you didn't notice, we didn't cut off the ends of our spinach. We just put it all in there.
I probably would have cut this.
Could have used
I
that
would have used this.
But
Maybe
if
I'll
you don't use it, composting it. Or another thing you can do with your vegetable scraps is make like a homemade vegetable broth. That's another way to put them to good use.
And you
that
can freeze them right away.
Have to trash it.
You can freeze those veggies and put them in a Ziploc or some kind of freezer safe container, and it could be reusable. But also same with fruits. Any fruit ends, fruit scraps that you're not going to eat right away, even if it's a little bit of banana, throw it all in a freezer bag and pop it in the freezer, and you will have instant stuff for smoothies. So any of those scraps is going to be beneficial and save you money. It all adds up. Look at how pretty
I know
these
we're getting to the end of our time today, so I just wanted to show you guys our final picture. If you can look at all that color, all the green and yellows and reds.
It smells so good.
It does smell good.
The oregano smells fantastic.
So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Are there any other questions?
Okay, well, enjoy making this recipe. Happy National Nutrition Month.
Thank you, guys.